Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of Creating No Matter What. We've had a lot of fun. For those of you who are just joining for the very first time, I am Rebekah Beneteau of Pleasure Evolution, creating empowerment in the bedroom and beyond by helping you honor your authenticity in all areas. And David and I have had 2 days of these juicy conversations about different aspects of what it would take to create no matter what's going on in your life. David, what would you like to say to people who've never met you before?
Well, what would I like to say to them? Hello, welcome. Nice to meet you. I have both Rebekah and I have backgrounds in many different modalities and healing approaches. We've both committed our lives to healing and transformational approaches of many different kinds. We're not here really to unify to bring you one specific approach, but really more to invite you into a dialogue that we're having as we bring our varied backgrounds to give you an opportunity to explore what works for you, how we can support you in your journey. So how's that?
Yeah, that sounds great. So what do we want to talk? We said today that we were going to talk about your unique flow, like
yes, honoring your unique creative
how you
flow.
create and how you can create that's different from how anybody else does it. And this is really, I feel like a juicy topic for me because I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out the formula. Like I felt like as a kid that everyone else got the handbook for life except me. And that if I could just figure out what it was, how to operate in the world, I had a very sort of right and wrong. If I could just get it right, everything would come to me. And this has continued into adulthood where I have spent a lot of money paying a lot of teachers and coaches to teach me how to do business right. You know, and what a lot of them have taught is what's worked for them. You know, they're like, I've spent lots of money being told someone else's system, but it wasn't a system at all. It was a structure that worked for them. And what I was finding was it wasn't working for me. It wasn't creating results. And so part of my growth has really been to figure out what works for me as a creator and to follow that rather than following the common wisdom around internet marketing or course creation or any of that stuff. So
yeah, so similarly, we share with you what we've seen has worked for us, approaches, tools, perspectives, and you take whatever you resonate with, whatever lights you up, and use that however you please, and whatever doesn't resonate for you, toss it aside. That one isn't for you.
Yeah, and I think the most valuable tool that we can give anybody is the ability to discern and feel justified in doing what works for them, like that having that space of allowance for you and value for you, instead of measuring yourself against some yardstick where you always come up short.
Absolutely.
So, you know, for the people who are tuning in live or who are tuning in after the fact, like, you know, where are places where you have used other people's systems or ways of creating as a tool to beat yourself up and make yourself wrong? And has that worked in making you feel more creative or less creative?
And similarly, what has your unique creative flow looked like in the past? And do you find yourself clinging to those old approaches or old flows that maybe don't pertain to you anymore? It's important for us to reassess from time to time. I'm finding with my music, I'm creating music in a very different way than I ever have before, and I'm finding it challenging in a different way than it has before. And there's a certain uncomfortableness in this, like, man, what I did before seemed so much easier, but this is really the way it's calling for me to do it now. And so that's required me letting go of any attachments of how I thought it was supposed to look, or look for me even. Because just as we are constantly shifting and evolving, our creative processes are continually shifting and evolving.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things I thought I would say to people is, when are you at your most creative? Do you like to work in the morning, in the evening? Do you like to have a bunch of projects going at one time? Do you like to only have one until your desk is clear? And once you figure out what those are you willing for tomorrow to have it be totally different? Originally I thought there was some value in knowing what works for you. And I think that there is some value, but there's also value in being willing to wake up every day and go, what do I want to do today? Like, what's going to work for me today? What needs my attention today?
Yeah, and the place to look and what feels right, what lights you up, like you were saying yesterday, what lights you up, what inspires, what feels good. I think I want to go for a walk first, or I think I want to play video games for an hour first, or I want to meditate.
No, wait, video games, no. Everything else, but no.
Zombie video games, yes.
Yes, I mean, some of the most amazing things have come to me when I have done what looked on the surface like the least productive activity.
Yes. Yeah.
That's also, the truth is that you're creating all the time, and sometimes your creative force isn't going to look like what you think it should.
Absolutely. It rarely does, if ever, I want to say.
Yeah, I have found, and this is a very hard one for me. I've had to overcome a lot of my beliefs around, I have to be like a shark. Sharks are always moving. They never stop. And to learn how to rest, to learn how to enjoy my downtimes, and I'm beginning to recognize that sometimes when I give myself a time to do nothing, the next day I come back so energized, so full of creative ideas. So one thing I've learned is I'm very creative in the car. Long road trips really spark up my imagination for some reason. So I've gotten in the habit of, I'll just press record on my phone and speak out whatever ideas start popping into my head in the moment. That's another thing that I've learned about myself, is that I do well to write things down in the moment, because if I tell myself I'm going to remember, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Those are awesome. Those are great. So another thing we could look at is, you talked about, we talked before, is it can be fun to explore what particular places in our bodies we feel creative expansion is emerging, when we're feeling inspired. Like, that can be nice to kind of get in touch with that, and it can change. It could be in different parts of your body. And similarly, there could be a particular place when when you're creating or thinking of creating, you feel a tension or a contraction in a particular part of your body. So it could be useful to feel into those and see, what's going on there? Why am I feeling tense or concerned? And how can I let more of this yummy flow come from this other part of my body, whether it's my heart or my head or my loins or whatever it is?
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think that there's ways to sort of bring down your barriers and open to and access the knowing that comes from different parts of your body. For me, it's pretty much, well, let's talk about life creation for a minute. Like, when I think about what I would like my life to be, the things that really light me up, I notice that I generally feel that in my womb area, my pelvis, my crotch. There's this definite aliveness that comes from that. And so in my experience, if we're creating all the time, and like energy attracts like energy, right? So choosing the things that match the energy of what I want my life to be like has always led me in a good direction so far. Choosing stuff because it sounds like a good idea hasn't worked as well for me. And maybe for some people it does, you know, maybe your mental capacity, or maybe that's just how it shows up for you as a knowing, a mindful knowing. But for me, body response is very important. So I'm getting happy birthday wishes in the thread. Thank you very much. Hi, girls. And to create from Zen mind. Dina's saying, create from Zen mind into a flow with no preconceptions. Yeah, that's good. You know, if we can come from no projection or expectation of what will be created, just that we know something will be created. If we follow this thing, this wave of juicy energy that's lighting us up, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The creative energy, or in Tantra, we call it spanda. It's something that you coax out. You entice her, court her. It's in Tantra, it's a feminine energy, that creative life force energy. And so exploring what, and she's not something you can force. You can't say, come on, I'm going to be creative now, whether I like it or not. Like, it never works. That never works that way, right? So it's more like, okay, what can increase these juices flowing? How can I nourish myself and nourish her and that creative force, and ride that wave? So to speak, another image I really like to use. So the Zen mind, that's really great, and it's a way of being. It's a mind space, a flow. It's not something you reach there and say, okay, I've reached the Zen mind space, and now I'm creating from nothing, pure, you know, just without attachment. It's an ongoing thing, because that attachment will creep in. It's a space or a mindset that we cultivate continually. As I'm creating, I will notice as things start to form, I'll get excited about, oh, this should look like this over here, or maybe this should. So it's constantly looking at it from a space of, well, maybe it'll look that way, and maybe it won't. Let's ride the wave and continue coaxing out that spanda, and ride that wave and see where she wants to go.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I know about spanda is that it goes with tapas, right? And tapas is not little Spanish appetizers. In the tantric tradition, tapas is declining a habit. And when we decline a habit, then spanda, spontaneous things erupt. So if your habit is to create in a certain way, if your habit is to judge your creations or measure your creations, what would happen if you declined to do that habit and allowed things to emerge? I don't know, maybe try it. But I'm also curious about Zen mind, because if we make I must be in flow before I can create, now it becomes a limitation. What if Zen mind is what happens when we follow our creative wave? And I'm sure we've all had that experience where you just start doing something that's so fun and so absorbing that you look up and a couple of hours has gone by and you're like, how did that happen? I mean, I know that happens to you all the time, David. You're like, I wrote until 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
Totally. I was saying it can happen in either way. Sometimes spontaneously we find ourselves in that space, and sometimes we need to coax her a little bit. We're like, I really want to do some creating, but I'm not in that space. So how can I cultivate that Zen mind? Is that meditation or video games or a walk in the park? Or it's exploring your own.
What would it take? Like what is required here to spark up my creativity? I know that in The Artist's Way, she has a bunch of things to get you in creative space. And one of them is an artist's date, right? Taking your inner artist out on a play date. But there's something I came across just this morning, doing a workbook from Access Consciousness called Advanced How to Become Money Workbook. And in this chapter on enthusiasm for living, he's talking about the joy of creation, the joy of choice, and the joy of possibility. And I just thought it was so relevant to what we've been talking about that I just want to read it to you. It says, when you're enthusiastic, you seek out that which will work rather than that which will stop you. Most people don't do this. They tend to seek out a solution to their problem. They ask, what's going to solve this? They think that if they can get unstopped, they will be able to create, but they lack enthusiasm for the joy of creation, the joy of choice, and the joy of possibility. So those are things that create enthusiasm in life: joy, choice, and possibilities. So instead of asking what's going to solve this problem, what's going to get me unblocked, you could ask, what else is possible? What am I capable of creating that I've never been able of creating before? What am I capable of choosing to put my attention on that I've never been willing to put my attention on before? And from that space, I think that we will suddenly get awareness of things that are possible for you today that might not have been possible for you yesterday.
Yeah. For me, the being in question is really key to keeping the creative flow going. What is possible in this? What can I create with this music? It's not feeling quite right, the lyrics right here. What else is possible? Letting go of, let me just scrap that whole lyric, and just, even though I really like the way it sounds, but it's just not it for me. So scrapping that and seeing what's possible. Where else could this go? That's really a key to keeping it going for me.
Yeah, beautiful. It's sort of like, if I didn't know how this was supposed to be done, how would I do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which again, that's for me, that's the attachment again, and knowing, we have a lot of ideas about how things should be, how it's worked before, what hasn't worked before, and all of those are in the past and have nothing to do with the creative process. They're all ruminations and reflections on things that are in the past, which can inform us and give us ideas, and yet there's no possibility in those. There's no question in those.
Right, because we're talking about creation, not recreation. So just by its very nature, creation is unique to you. And where have you been trying to recreate someone else's idea of a life or someone else's idea of art, instead of choosing what lights you up and what's only yours to create? No one else can do it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear anyone who wants to put, or read rather, anyone who wants to write in the comments what lights you up, what inspires you when you're looking for a way to spark those creative juices. What lights you up? And again, that's not a fixed thing. That doesn't mean like that's your one thing that you have, or that's always going to work. But you've noticed there's some things that generally get you there, that generally get you in that direction, get things flowing in that direction. It's always interesting to hear other people, and as people come to this video and they might look in the comments just to get ideas from what you put. So please, give us your thoughts, questions. Rebekah's looking at the comments, so she will be glad to answer any questions you have about things that we've touched on. I did have someone ask about something we'd spoken about on one of our earlier calls. I'd made a comment about encouraging people to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And it was something along the lines, well, does that mean that we're going to dismiss or dishonor ourselves? Are we going to jump into things without considering the consequences of our actions? And so I think for me, the way I would answer that is sometimes it could look that way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to make those decisions without awareness. or without research or exploration into, because we'll still have there are responses and reactions, and I don't know if consequences is really the word. That kind of has a bad tinge to it, but there's certain things that are that will set certain things in motion, and bring awareness. So another
Well, David,
thing I
I mean, I want to really,
is that,
I want to look at this from a slightly different perspective. Can I? Which is there really anything that's a bad decision? What if everything is just a decision, a choice that leads to certain outcomes, and then we get to choose again, we get to decide again? But what if the fear, see, this is the thing that holds a lot of us hostage, is the fear of making a bad decision.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you could just allow
and when I say bad decision,
mm-hmm.
when we're saying, when I say bad decision, it's who's judging whether that's a bad decision. It's somebody's judging that, and so it's basically saying, well, again, it comes back to the Tantra principle of lineage that I follow. That everything is an experiment. Everything is an experiment, so again, you might want to check and see if that really is the experiment you want to do. But if you bring consciousness to it, that makes all the difference in the world. And really, when I'm talking about desire, I'm talking about our deepest desires. It's something more than, well, I desire to have an ice cream right now, or or my fifth ice cream, or whatever. It's like, well, if I'm looking for that fifth ice cream, I might want to say, I think there's something else I'm desiring right now that is more than that ice cream, because that ice cream is not satisfying it. For instance, like, what is my deeper desire? Actually, maybe what I'm really wanting in this moment is connection. Oh, well, if I want to fulfill connection, I could better fulfill that with maybe a phone call to a friend, or maybe I need to, so bringing more awareness is always a winning, how do I want to say that? Winning, again, has that positive, negative
strategy
concept to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I love bringing awareness to it.
Yeah, so we have a couple of things coming up in the comments. Jan says that music helps her get to the creative place. She knows that about herself. That's awesome.
Me too.
Then Dina says, many ideas light me up, but I don't record them, and then they die, or they just stay not born. So, okay, cool, great awareness. What would it take for you to be willing to birth your creations?
Yeah, there's something to be, when I've heard more than once from people I've been coaching, is feeling a disconnection from their heart's desires. Like, I don't even know what I desire. It's like they haven't, we can get in that space when we don't listen to our desires, when we don't honor them. It's like, oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, I gotta be more responsible, or be more reasonable. And so sometimes if we feel cut off from the sponda, from that creative life force, she stops talking. And then she might just talk a little quietly here and there. I'd really like to go for a walk in the park. And so if we find ourselves disconnected, it's important to listen, and we want to cultivate that connection with the sponda. Listening to the small tugs is really important, like following the breadcrumbs. Oh, I kind of want to go for a walk in the park. I don't know if I have time, but I really want to cultivate that creative flow in me. So I'm going to take 5 minutes to go across the street and walk in the park, or whatever it is, whatever that pull is for you.
Right. I think because there's a piece coming up for me right now about, and it's coming in Dina's comments about, I have these ideas, I have a lot of ideas, and then I don't record them, I don't act on them, and they don't get born. Okay, cool. Like, if you weren't judging yourself for what you have not created yet, what else is possible now? Right? Like, if everything that you've done up to now was totally fine and okay, what are you going to create today and tomorrow? You know, what would it take for me to be more active towards my creations today than I was yesterday? Like, these are the kinds of questions that I like to wake up and ask myself, rather than jumping to the conclusion that I'm a procrastinator, that I'm lazy, that I don't know how to get things done. Like, whenever that kind of voice comes up, what tool have I got in my toolkit that will help me move beyond that voice? I used to use Byron Katie's The Work a lot to question the reality of my thoughts. Now I use the tools of access consciousness. Who does that belong to? Is it mine? If it's not mine, return to senders. If it is mine, interesting point of view. I have that point of view. I will do whatever it takes to get myself to a place that feels more generative and more fun and more juicy. Telling myself that I'm a lousy creator and lazy sloth and procrastinator doesn't generally do much for me. Doesn't feel light. So how can I play? How can I get into more question about what's possible? So, you know, that's my invitation. Turn off the judgment, the voice of judgment. Thank you for sharing. Take a hike. So, and oh, she says we're waking her up. She says that's awesome. Thank you. I love that we're getting that feedback.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We're waking up too.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are a contribution by being here. It makes it way more fun for us to have some interaction, to know that you're listening, to know that you're getting stuff out of it. Yeah, it's inspiring. And I think that this would be a good time to tell them what we got going on next, because we said we're going to do this for 3 days and today's day 3, right? So day 4 is actually day 1 of a new program called Creativity Beyond Captivity, right? What do we want to tell them about that? We want to invite you. If it feels light, if it feels like it would create more in your world, to join us for 4 weekly calls for an hour, starting on this Sunday, the 24th, at this same time, 3 o'clock, US, Eastern US. And these are not going to be live streamed. They're private calls on Zoom just for the participants, because we're going to get the opportunity to really do a deep dive and use some of the tools that David and I have been honing over our combined probably 50 years in the personal growth industry and study, to just invite more awareness of your own creativity, of what you're longing to create, of what may be stopping you, and how you can turn that into make that useful and not let it stop you anymore. And just like, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this, and I'll take a breath, let you talk in a minute, David. But the thing that excites me is that the system is breaking right now. The system is broken. The world is shifted off its axis. And this is such a rich time for us to create a future that we really desire more than ever before. There's no going back. And there, you know, what we considered normal, we're not going back there. It's time for a new normal. And so I'm really fostering as many people as possible to start actively, mindfully creating. Feels just really exciting and enlivening to me.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. I feel like this is a really timely conversation right now, especially given all that's going on. And, you know, I hear people saying, gosh, if we can just get back to normal again. I'm like, things ain't going back to normal, baby.
No.
And do you really even want them to go back to normal? Like,
yeah.
Man.
So we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to have
so,
Go ahead.
was going to say the other thing is, yeah, and another thing that is a big piece of what we're cultivating in this, in these 4 sessions are going to be more lightness, fun, and play in the creative process. For all of us, So it's going to be a rich conversation, very more interactive than this. It'll be more interactive time since you all will be on the Zoom call with us, and we'll get to know more about you and your process, what you're up to creating in the world for yourself in the world, and seeing how we can support you with that and hold space for you.
Yeah.
To create as powerfully and uniquely as you can.
And we're going to record all the calls, and they'll be in your library eternally. So, and any other materials that we come up with, there's going to be a private Facebook group for everybody to relate. It's 4 Sundays and 2 of us. And what would you pay for this experience? $1 million? $1,000? Well, we've put a suggested contribution. We believe that it's worth at least $50. So that's what we're asking. If your investment is just $50, but if that's really a hardship for you, talk to us, because we want everyone to be able to be there that really wants to be there. So we'll see what we can work out. But that was the price the class asked to be. So what else? What can we create together?
And if you, absolutely. So and if there's something that you think that would benefit from this conversation, from being a part of it, please share these videos with them, whether or not they're in the class. If you feel you may think of someone who could benefit from just watching these live streams that we've done, it'd be an honor to be a contribution to your friends, your family, whoever.
Yes, please share them wherever. Come look for us on pleasureevolution.com and davidsalih.com to see other things that we've got going on. It is my birthday today, and tonight I'm hosting a pants off dance off. So you do have to register to get the link, but it's free. I'm going to be spinning some tunes. We're going to be making some birthday wishes for the planet. And if your pants fall off or you don't wear any to begin with, that's totally cool. That's what it means to be a pants off dance off. And no, it is not a play party. Yeah, just wanted to get that clear. It is a disco dance party. Yeah.
Awesome.
So hopefully we'll see some of y'all on Sunday, and if not, who knows what we'll create next, eh, David?
Absolutely. And if for some reason, and like Rebekah was saying, if for some reason you're not able to make the first call, we are going to be recording the call. So if you can only join us at the second call, that's okay too. You'll be able to, we'll send you a link to the first one so you be on the same page with the rest of us.
Dina says, I can't stay up at the dance party. It'll be too late in Hamburg. Well, some other time we will dance in the daylight, Dina. But all right, well, so that's it from us for today, and time for us to go off and create some more stuff. But this has been really fun being here with all of you. Thank you so much for your contributions. David, thank you for being my partner in crime, the Bonnie and Clyde of consciousness and creativity.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for listening and joining us.
So until we see you again, my loves, keep creating no matter what, and follow and do what gets your panties wet. Mwah.